sure thing that can happen to any individual who is considering this aspect of generational wealth and inheritance is that the people who are meant to inherit whatever you create as wealth, rather, need to be prepared. And whatever you have as an inheritance also need to be ready to receive the heir that you would put in place to handle the business. As a first generation, all we are doing is we are planting the seed. And the expectation is that the second generation will water that seed that we have planted, while the third generation would grow the seed, and the fourth generation would come and protect the plant that would have been created. I'm going to use a lot of plant anecdotes today, or to describe and to explain what I'm talking about today. So the fourth generation literally comes in, and what they do, because the plant has already grown, they protect it, they enhance it, and then they start the cycle again. They now become the first generation, and creating assets and generating assets, building assets that would be moved to a generation that they themselves may not also get to see. The only sure investment we can give to our children is an investment in themselves. And that becomes the main inheritance that we hand over to our children. Yeah? And not an investment for them. That is actually very important. The only sure inheritance is an investment in the children themselves and not for the children. So I'm going to get into 4 critical points which would be our take home for today. The first one is that in preparing assets for heirs and preparing heirs for assets, we have to look at these 4 aspects, creating an environment for an inheritance to be effectively executed. The first one I'm going to be talking about is a bond of affinity. Okay? A bond of affinity is actually very interesting. When you talk about a bond, if you have a bond with someone, it means you are connected with them. You are linked with them. And if you say the 2 words now put together, a bond, which is connection, and then affinity, which is a deeper level of connection. It's not just the fact that you are connected to someone, it's that you are connected at even a very spiritual level in a way that that bond cannot be broken. Okay? And the preparation of assets for heirs and heirs for assets has to be tied to that spiritual connection with the generations that you don't even know. And even for the generation, I take myself now, even for my children now, the connection that I would have with my children as we build assets for them to be able to carry and move into the next generation, I have to start creating that bond. And that bond is not created when the child has become an adult. It's created from when the child is born, up to the time when you hand over the inheritance or when up to the point where the heirs end up inheriting from you. Yeah? And this bond of affinity is actually a concept which is very, very interesting to me. It's a concept which says it is not about you. It is about that generation that is still to be born, that you may not even know. Yeah? It's about the common good agenda. An agenda which says, my dear friend, my dear brother, my dear sister, it's not about you. is not about your individual interest. It's about the interest for the common good. And the common good is the lineage of the generations to come. So that the generations that come after you, that the generations that come after us, do not have to start from where we started. Our parents started from a specific place and took us to where we are right now. We would enhance what our parents have put in our possession, and then we'll move that into the next generation. Yeah? And in enhancing what we move into the next generation, we have to consider this aspect of a bond of affinity, which is, it is not about you. It is the common good agenda, an agenda which goes way beyond you and targets the generations that are still to be born. Okay. The second aspect we're going to be talking about today is about the fact that as we live, while we are on this earth, we have a responsibility to impart character in the people that we would want to transfer our assets to. The people we would want to inherit what we have created over our own lifetimes. Therefore, we have to impart high levels of discipline, high levels of character into everyone that we would want to take over from us when we are no longer here. It's about the fact that for us to be able to do this, for us to be able to impart, you cannot impart to a generation or to your children if you are absent. We have to be present in the lives of our children. We have to be concerned about the lives of our children. We have to participate in their growth. It's not about presence, it's about presence. So not presents as gifts, holidays, and all of that. It's about your physical presence and attention to their detail, attention to be present in everything they do. We cannot trade our presence in the lives of our children for cars. We cannot trade the presence of our lives, of ourselves in the lives of our children for houses. We cannot trade that. Every minute that you spend with your children, with the generation that is coming after you, it's an important aspect of imparting in that generation's life. You're imparting character, you are imparting wisdom, you are imparting knowledge, you are imparting all sorts of, even the people you know, the connections, the people who know you, and all of that. We'll get to that in another section of this conversation. Yeah, but sporadic gifts and holidays and things like that would not impart the kind of character that your presence in the lives of the children will impart. The third thing that we will be looking at today is relegated parenthood. Yeah. So your presence, if you are present in the lives of the generation to come, you would not relegate your parenthood in their lives. Children who have grown in the presence of their parents, it could be a child who was raised just by a single mother, a single father, or it could be a child who was raised by a mother and a father. The presence of their lives, of themselves, of their being, sharing their time, sharing their efforts, participating in their activities, encouraging them, is is fundamental in the growth and development of the child. I would use an example. For those who know about planting trees, I'm using another tree imagery right now. For those who know about planting trees, when you nurse a plant, you put it in a small bag, it grows a little bit, you take it out of that, you put it in you take it to the garden and you plant it. Yeah. For the person who is planting that, who is looking after that plant, the person tending the plant, can literally decide that they want the plant to grow to the left, and they tilt the plant, put a wedge, and direct the plant in the way in which it should grow. Once that plant has grown to that specific direction as required by the person who is planting it, and the plant has become a matured plant, it becomes completely impossible for that same person who planted the plant to come and decide and say, you know what, no, I made the plant to grow to the left or to the right. Oh, now I want you to grow, to change direction and start growing in another direction. I'm saying that to say that when you are preparing your children, you cannot prepare them when they are already adults. The only way you mold the character of your children so they know what is right and know what is wrong. They know what they carry, what their purpose is. They become passionate about the things and the gifts that have been that they are endowed with. The dreams that they have, to become passionate about the dreams that they have, that have been placed in their hearts. The only time you can start molding that is when the children are small, which takes us back to the point we looked at earlier, which is presence and not presence. Presence and not gifts. Yeah. So relegating our parenthood is completely something that we cannot ignore. In our lives today, everybody goes out. There's a lot of, you have to go and work. Apart from the last year and a half where a lot of people are working from home and they get to interact a lot more with their children. In fact, last year there was a lot of fun. Parents actually, realizing and recognizing that teachers actually do a great job, because we were all faced with the challenge of dealing with our children, with homeschooling. We're faced with the challenge with homeschooling of the children, and it became clear to parents that we actually have not been present. We actually do not know what our children are doing in school. We actually do not. We before the pandemic of last year, we were not very present in the lives of our children, and that ends up giving birth to a generation of children who literally don't know their parents, and parents who literally don't know their children. Then when it comes to inheriting, the parents now are, it's literally, taking a chance. Yeah. And then the fourth and last aspect, which we will talk about, is about family stability. Yeah. A will is what is written in paper, but what is engraved in people's minds, what is engraved in people's hearts, is actually what carries that will to its success. Because you could write all what you want on a will. If the heirs are not prepared for the assets that you have secured. Therefore, my summation, my conclusion of the matter is that inheritance starts at birth. Okay? Inheritance starts at birth. Because we are endowed with the, I will call it the equipment or the instruments to bring children to earth, to bring children on this earth, does not make us parents who are ready to transfer whatever we create and generate as assets, to be able to transfer it. The next important thing in my summation is that the 4 elements that we looked at today are extremely important. First of all, a bond of affinity. Secondly, we have to impart before we depart. By the time we are leaving, we should have molded the character, we should have crafted the future, we should have shared our dreams, we should have shared our passions, we should have exposed the purpose of our existence to our children, so that they can now become the second generation that grows the plant which we would have planted. And once they grow the plant that we would have planted, they would have a view of the next generation, even the generation that they don't know, that they may never even see. So the next one is we have to impart before we depart. The third thing is that we do not have to relegate our responsibilities as parents. Yeah? We do not have to relegate our responsibilities as parents. The fourth aspect is family stability. We model family stability. We insulate our children from conflicts. And then the 3 A's. We have to show the next generation affection. We have to show the next generation attention. We have to pay attention to them, pay attention to their dreams, pay attention to their desires, pay attention and use our wisdom in molding those desires so that they can become who they were meant to become. Yeah? And the last one is affirmation. We have to always affirm, positively encourage, positively support the next generation, so that they understand what it means to build for the next generation, and share all these things with them, so that there is no confusion when they also have the responsibility to transfer what had been generated by their own parents and transfer to them. They grow it and they transfer to the third generation. A generation, as I always say, a generation that we may never see. And in all of this, we have to stick to the common good agenda. We have to stick to the common good agenda. The common good agenda is the agenda which is not about you. I'm sorry to say it's not about us. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's actually about a generation that is still to come. A generation that we may not even see. So that's where we ended up today.